Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we're going to head back up to Aberdeenshire and visit one of my local breweries from when I was living up in Aberdeen. So most of you will know by now that of course I'm talking about Brewdog. So we're going to have a taste of one of their quite cool beers that they've done fairly recently. This is the Old World IPA, and it's meant to be styled like the old IPAs were the original IPAs that went away over to India from England. So as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll take you through a very kind of brief history of Brewdog. I've done many reviews from these guys before, so it will only be a minute or two. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. The brewery website's in the description for you below, along with a link to my other Brewdog reviews that I've done before, and there will be more added to that in the very near future. So anyway, just to tell you a little bit about Brewdog. Brewdog's the love child of two guys, James Watt and Martin Dickey, and they were founded in 2007 at a small brewery in the Keswick Industrial Estate in Fraserburgh in the very northeast corner of Scotland. But really recently they've actually moved to their new purpose-built facility in Ellon. And what's really cool about these guys is they're a very experimental brewery, kind of largely inspired by the sort of American craft brewing renaissance, if you like. And a lot of their infrastructure that they have at their brewery up in Ellon now was crowd-funded, if you like. They have an equity for punk scheme where people can buy into the brewery, and essentially what they're doing is buying like a lifetime discount, if you like. So you buy shares in the brewery and it helps them fund all their new bars and their new facilities and all of this kind of thing. Very, very cool. So do keep an eye out on the Brewdog website if you are interested in that. You can exchange your shares for lifetime discounts in the shop and things like that. Very, very cool. But this brewery, with their experimentations, they're very well known, having done quite a few strong beers. They've held the title of World's Strongest Beer on a couple of occasions. That was their Tactical Nuclear Penguin, then there was the Sink the Bismarck, and then the End of History. But they've bowed out of that race now, but all of those were really, really nice beers. I was lucky enough to try all three of them, which was really quite cool, I have to admit. So have a look for those if you're interested in that. But these days they actually have a huge chain of brew pubs. The first of these opened in late 2009 in Aberdeen, which was my local one where I was studying, but they expanded that to the rest of Scotland later that year and then took it down into England, and now they have sites all over Europe and as far afield as Japan, I believe. But they're looking at new sites in America and in Australia and New Zealand and things like that. So do keep an eye on Brewdog's, the advances of Brewdog's brew pubs. But what's really cool about these guys is that they are the largest independently owned craft brewery in Scotland these days, and the original guys still own about 75% of the company. So very, very cool, and it's really cool that a Scottish brand, if you like, has become so popular globally. So I really like doing the reviews from Brewdog, one because their beer is awesome, and two, it's a very kind of successful Scottish story, if you like. These guys have pretty much become the sort of whiskey guys of the beer world, if that makes sense, just because of how successful their beers become. These guys are really promoting Scottish beer and it's becoming as known in the same way as Scottish whiskey is abroad. So Brewdog are a very, very cool company in that regard. But anyway, that's your kind of brief history of the brewery for this time. I hope you enjoyed it, but we'll get on to the tasting of this beer now. So I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the artwork in this one. I do really like the artwork they've put on here, so I'm definitely going to keep this bottle, as I tend to do with most of the Brewdog ones. But as you can see, they are Old World India Pale Ale. It says on the side, this bottle contains an India Pale Ale from a bygone era, an era of towering sailing ships, burgeoning empires and world-shaping beers. This is an ale handcrafted with British malts and English hops to recreate the epic IPAs that were sent on a monumental ocean voyages from England to India by sea in the 1800s. Our Old World IPA is an attempt by punk post-modern Scottish brewers to pay tribute to a 200-year-old odyssey and heritage with a healthy dose of swashbuckling adventure. So really quite cool there, and it has the Brewdog symbol on the side, as you can see. I'll just put the light down so you can see that a bit better. But yeah, it says on the side as well, Old World is our tribute to the great genre-defining beers of yesteryear. They also have a stout on this series, by the way. We wanted to pay homage to the roots of one of the beer styles which have powered the craft beer revolution more than any others, India Pale Ale. These beers are designed to be liquid time machines, taking you back to the origins of a beer style we all love today. Both beers have beautifully hand-drawn labels by Johanna Basford, which are intricately depict the story of and heritage of the style, made with barley, hops, yeast and water. So yeah, pretty cool actually. It looks really nice. You can see the pirate ship on there, which obviously was a bit of a problem for the original Voyagers and stuff. I could just let the light, you can see the pirate ship there. Pretty cool. But without further ado, let's get this guy open and get on with the tasting. It's a 7.5% pale ale. I've tried this guy before actually when I did a sort of beer tasting for the Craft Beer Society at Aberdeen University, and it was quite an interesting one from what I remember. I'm going to share this bottle with my dad, so that's why I've got my smaller glass today. But we'll just pour it out just now and you can see. I'll just taste a little bit of it, then share the rest with the old man, because he quite likes trying the beers. But as you can see, I'll just bring up the light there and let you see the colour of this. It's poured a really bright, kind of murky, orangey amber colour. You can see there's a huge three-finger head just on the half glass I've poured there. It's a kind of creamy coloured head, I would say, but it's very, very nice. If I put my fingers behind it, you can see the beer isn't transparent at all. Without paying too much attention to the aroma, it actually comes across as being quite fruity, which I didn't really remember about it, but definitely quite a fruity smelling beer. It's really nice. You can see just a little bit of carbonation going up towards the bottom of the head there, but otherwise there's not that much in the way of carbonation visible on it. There's probably a bit of sediment in the bottle there, because I've had the bottle for maybe about a year or so now. But yeah, it looks really, really nice actually. So let's have a wee look at the aroma. So yeah, as I said, it has quite a fruity aroma. There's a nice big kind of almost cereally bready character coming out of this guy as well, which is really nice. It's got a nice big sort of bready malt character, but the most prominent component of the aroma is definitely the sort of fruity element to it. But yeah, there's a nice kind of mix of bready malts in there, some nice caramel and sort of biscuity malts coming out too. Maybe even you can smell a little bit of spice in it. I remember tasting this beer and thinking there's definitely Fuggles hops in this. It's got a kind of almost ashy character to it, ashy and earthy character from what I remember. And you can definitely smell just a little bit of earthiness to it. But when you sugar it up, it's got a nice kind of sweet bread malt, some caramel and biscuit in there, but a nice bit of kind of spice too, and some grassy kind of aromatic hops, but it's got quite a juicy kind of orangey citric fruit about it, I think. Definite kind of grassy aromaticy, but a sort of orangey citrus comes off it too, so it's quite an interesting beer. So without further ado, let's give this guy a taste and see how we get on. So this is the Old World IPA from Brewdog in Aberdeen, Slangia. Yeah. It's actually the first thing I noticed about it is that it is quite highly carbonated, so that would probably explain why the head was a little bit mad when it came out. But yeah, it's got a nice big bready malt base on it, as you would expect. As you let the flavour progress into the aftertaste, you're getting a bit of an ashy feel. It's definitely Fuggles hops are in there. I'm sure that there is some Fuggles hops in there. You get just this nice, slightly ashy character around the back edges of the tongue there. And of course, with English hops, you always get this kind of earthy feel to it, and you can just feel that around the edges of the tongue. But towards the front edges of the tongue, that's when you're getting sort of the grassy and aromatic elements to it, but you've got a sort of earthy character around the back of the tongue there. Yeah, the middle of the tongue is just blanketed with this sort of pale malt, but at the same time it's quite bready as well. You've got just this pale malt and white bread blanket that just blankets the tongue there. You get a little bit of caramel and biscuity sweetness goes down the middle of the tongue, and just on either side you've got this kind of light pale malt, sort of bready malt aroma or flavour coming out there. Just a little bit of spice in there too, but the spice is actually spreading out more towards the edges of the tongue there, which makes me think it's maybe more of an aromatic-y spice or a sort of earthy or ashy spice that's coming out of this beer. It's got a very interesting flavour to it. But yeah, as you have the liquid in your mouth, it's got a nice juiciness that just pushes towards the front of the tongue, and you get this slightly orangey citrus flavour, I think, come towards the front of the tongue there. But you just get these grassy hops, slightly aromatic as well, but there is this little juicy bubble that comes towards the front of the tongue there and just brings out these nice fruit flavours. Yeah, there's a definite fruity flavour in there. I almost want to say it's got a little bit of caramel comes with it, but there's a definite slightly orangey fruit flavour comes towards the front of the tongue there. It might be a bit lemony, but I think it's a bit sharper. It's more like a sort of mandarin-y orange flavour that's coming forward, I want to say. But around the edges of the tongue at the front, like I say, you're getting the sort of aromatic-y and grassy hops. It's not quite too sharp in the way an aromatic one is. It's more of a grassy hop that just comes right at the front of the tongue. But definitely in the aftertaste, you've got this slightly ashy and earthy, dry bitterness around the back edges of the tongue. It's really nicely done, actually, and you just have this blanket of a sweet caramel and biscuit malt going down the middle of the tongue, and then a sort of bready blanket with just a little bit of spice. It's a very complex flavour, this beer, but it's really nicely done, actually. Yeah, you just get this little juicy character. In terms of the mouthfeel, the beer is actually quite juicy. You have this nice fruity juicy character that builds on the edges of the tongue, then disappears into a sort of dry aftertaste, and you get that little juicy oily bubble that moves towards the front of the tongue too. It's really nicely done, actually. I keep saying that it's really nicely done, but it is a very nice beer. Definitely worth trying if you can still get this. I'm not sure, but I've had this bottle for a while, which is why the reviews appearing late, but it was very well regarded when it came out, and I can definitely see why. So in terms of the mouthfeel with this guy, I would say it probably is kind of mid-bodied. It's got quite a prickly carbonation on it. This is one of the more carbonated ones from Brewdog that I've come across, actually. Maybe just because I've had the bottle a bit longer, and you could see it also with the head when it came out. But it's got a nice oily mouthfeel, but it's quite a wet oil, if that makes sense. You get just a little bit of oily character that helps bring out the sweetness in the malt, I think, and then it kind of fades to being quite a nice wet mouthfeel in beer. But there's a nice hoppy bitterness that comes out particularly in the aftertaste, and you get this dryness around the edge of the tongue, and that helps bring out the sort of slightly ashy, slightly earthy characters on the back corners of the palate, but it also complements the kind of lemony citrus flavours that are coming out in the aftertaste just on the tip of the tongue, and the aromatic feel. But at the same time, the oily character helps bring out the bready malt base and the caramel malt. So it's really, really nicely done. And when I actually tried this beer the first time, I didn't like it. It's taken me a little while to get used to Fuggles hops, but reviewing a few other beers that have them in them, I've actually grown to like them when they're used properly. Some of the porters and things, and now that I go back to the IPA, I can really appreciate this this kind of flavour. So it's really cool to go back to the beer, because I really didn't like this one when I tried it the first time, so it is cool to come back to it and sort of appreciate the flavour a bit more. And I would say this time, having tried it a second time, I do actually quite like it. So yeah, if you are interested in this bottle, it is quite an unusual one from Brewdog. I'm not sure if you will find it again at this point. I think it was released at the start of 2014, so you're not too likely to find this one. But if you do come across it, I would recommend that you try it, because it's cool, because it's it's definitely an English style pale ale, and it's cool that they've taken all English malts and English hops and stuff, and you can really taste that with the earthy character in the hops, as I was saying during the tasting point. But very, very cool beer that I really would recommend that you get a hold of, particularly if you like English pale ales and the sort of Fuggles hop and things. Really nice beer. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. Please let me know in the comment section your own thoughts on it below. I'm sorry if I've rambled a little bit in this video, because I wasn't sure how I would take to this beer having tried it for the second time, but very, very good, like I say. Let me know in the comment section your own thoughts on this beer below. Always interesting to read, and please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I hope you've enjoyed this review from Brewdog, and I will catch you soon with another one. I've got lots more Brewdog beers to do, including the Old World Stout, so keep an eye out for that. Cheers.